Space bugs. Why did it have to be space bugs?
Because nobody likes bugs. Well, I'll tell you what, you can't help but admire that cover art. It's an absolutely brilliant piece of work. Certainly does a fine job of depicting a much better game than what we're actually going to play, although what we got ain't too shabby either. Anyway, it's Galaxian, released in 1982 for Atari 8-bit computers as well as Atari 5200, both versions recently seeing a re-release via the Namco Legendary DLC portion of the Atari 50 compilation, and unlike Atari's Pac-Man conversion on this hardware, both 5200 and 8-bit computer versions of Galaxian are the exact same game, with the only difference being the hardware they're being played on, which is probably a null point at the moment since you're more than likely going to be playing this via Atari 50 with a presumably more functional gamepad. But in any event, Galaxian is Namco's original space bug shooter thing that would spawn a sequel in Galaga that people are probably more familiar with, but the general idea of Galaxian is straightforward. Clear the screen of enemy Galaxians while avoiding their projectiles and dive attacks. You have layers of different colored Galaxians with different tactics to approach you, and you'll even have the leaders flanked by 2 wingmen that you could knock off for bonus points, but it all boils down to the simple practice of, if it moves, kill it before it kills you. For the most part, Galaxian on Atari 8-bit replicates the arcade gameplay adequately enough, although what threw me off a bit with this version was the Galaxian movement, which feels somewhat choppy and stilted for some reason. It's even more noticeable during the dive attacks, which look really awkward and actually made the game a little tougher than usual because you don't have the smooth movement of the arcade version, or the later Famicom version, or the ColecoVision version, which also from Atari Soft. Hell, even Galaxian on the technologically inferior 2600 version had smoother movement than this 8-bit version, so I don't know what happened there because it's the one detail that almost derailed this conversion. Still, if you can overcome that little defect, it's a perfectly fine version of Galaxian. Controls fine enough, plays just as well. You have almost a dozen difficulty settings, including a beginner mode that lets you pick off Galaxians without worry of return fire. You simply have to dodge their dives, which isn't all that bad. Alternatively, you could go full bore on level 9 difficulty and just die. Have fun with that, I'm not sure I will. 8-bit Galaxian generally looks the part. It's not the prettiest looking version of the game, but it looks fine otherwise. All the Galaxians share the same sprite, including the boss Galaxians, which usually have their own sprite, but they animate well enough. Not too sure about your ship, but other than that, it looks fine. As for sound, it's okay. Not quite arcade accurate, and I've generally heard better sounding ports, but this is fine, no real complaints otherwise. Overall, Galaxian on Atari 5200 and Atari 8-bit computer is a more than adequate conversion of the arcade classic, with the stilted movement being the only real noticeable blemish on an otherwise solid conversion that replicates the general arcade gameplay well enough. Obviously, there's better versions of Galaxian that surpasses this humble conversion, but despite the one issue, 8-bit Galaxian is more than fine and well worth a sample on the Namco DLC of Atari 50.